Hello YouTubers and fellow 3D printing enthusiasts. So in this video I'm going to give you a tutorial on how you can make 3D puzzles, jigsaw puzzles, using FreeCAD with a little bit of help from Inkscape. What these are is, you can see here, I'll just make a few of these slices invisible. You can see that we actually have a three-dimensional puzzle. This can be printed in place and then put together by your kids or your nieces, nephews, friends. It can be as complicated as you want to make it or as simple as you want to make it. And it's not too hard to do. So that's what we're going to do today. Let's get started. To start with, I'm going to look for a graphic to use on my puzzle. And in our example, we had a nice tiger. So I'm here on FreePik, FreePik.com. And I'm going to search for tiger. Now what we're going to want to find is we're going to want to find vectors. So you see this little highlight here in the middle of this button, vectors. We'll select that. And that will show us line art of tigers. This is the one that I used. It's just about right. You want to find something that's not too complex. This would be probably a bit too much here. It would overload the the CAD engine perhaps. So I'm going to go with this tiger. It's not too complex and I think it'll work just fine. So I selected this one and I downloaded it. Now that I've got my graphic downloaded, before we start working on it, we're going to go to FreeCAD and we're going to figure out how big we want our puzzle to be. Okay, I'm in FreeCAD version 1.0 and I'm going to make a new file. We're going to be working in the part workbench. So I'll create an empty file. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to make a simple square base for our puzzle. So we're going to go to the sketch, create a sketch on the XY plane. And I'm going to just take the simple centered rectangle, draw this out. And I know my print bed can handle up to 250 millimeters, I think. But most print beds on a lot of printers are only 200. So we're going to go 200 millimeters for the size. So I'm going to put in 200, tab, 200, enter. So now we have this nice square platform. Another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to round these corners off a little bit before we get out of here. So I'll select the Create Fillet tool and I'll click on the point of each of these corners. And that's going to create these fillets and also preserve our dimensions. Then I'll right click to cancel the tool and I'm going to select each of these arcs. Just the line, you just want to make sure you're only selecting the line. And I'm going to make them equal. And then I'm going to set a radius for one. I'll pick the dimensioning tool, click on this, and we'll set a radius of about 3 or 4 maybe. Let's do 4. That'll just give our puzzle nice rounded corners. And now I'll close the sketch. And then we're going to extrude this just a short distance. This is just the base of our puzzle. I'm probably going to do it about 2 millimeters or maybe 3. Let's do 3. Which I just typed in here, 3, and I'll hit OK. And that's the base of our puzzle. Now we know this is 200 millimeters square. So we can use that going forward when we go into Inkscape to work on our graphic. But first, I will save this. I want to call it Tiger. And then, I might rename this. Over here in the model tree, I tend to rename these operations so I can keep track of what's what. So I'm going to right click on that and select rename. And we'll call it base, extrude. Okay, let's go over to Inkscape now and let's pull in that tiger that we downloaded and set it up for us for FreeCAD. Okay, I'm in Inkscape. This is version 1.4, the current version. I've done a new document and I'm going to come up here to File and I'm going to select Import. And I'm going to choose that tiger that I downloaded. Here he is, tiger1.eps, encapsulated PostScript. Sometimes these will download as Adobe Illustrator files and they'll be named .ai. If that's the case, you want to rename it with a .pdf. That makes it easier to import into Inkscape. But we've got an encapsulated PostScript file, and that is fine. So I'll select that, and I'll hit Open. We'll select the defaults. Okay. And there is our tiger. Now, sometimes these graphics that you import will need a little bit of work. Sometimes they'll be fine. I'm going to drag this tiger down a little, and that's what I wanted to see. You see this white border down here? This has a white rectangle behind it we need to delete. We just want the geometry of the tiger itself. So I'm going to go up here to Object and select Layers and Object. That brings up the Layers dialog over here so we can see our object, and here it is, Group R5. So this is a group of many paths. We have to find this path that makes that rectangle. So I'm going to remove the selection. Usually it's the first one. So if we look here, it says Path 2. Yep, that's it. See that? If I hide it, then all we see is the tiger. So that's what we want to get rid of. So I'm going to delete that path. With it selected over here, I'm going to hit the delete key. Now we just have the tiger graphic. So I'm going to bring him over to my main page. And we need to think about size. Remember that my print bed is 200 millimeters. We see guides up here at the top, 0 to 200, and 200, and we can see he's slightly taller. These blue indicators are the extents of our graphic. I need to actually move him up to the corner. I'm going to make sure that snapping is turned on up here in the upper right, and I'm going to move him till he snaps to the corner. And now I can see that he is just under 200 millimeters, and he's under 200 in this direction on the left here. So this is actually fine. If the graphic was small, we could make it bigger. If it came in and it was really small, oops, I've still got snapping on. Turn that off now. If he was really small, we could use this corner resize handle to bring the size out, and you can watch these blue indicators up here and on the side, and I can bring him out to where he's just about going to fill up my puzzle. So I want a little bit of space around the side, so I'm going to go to about there. 190. So that leaves 10, so it'll be 5 on each side in the puzzle. So once we've got it resized, then we can center it before we export it. In FreeCAD, 0 and 0, which is the upper left corner of our Inkscape document, that is the origin point in our CAD. So we want to center our graphic on this corner of the page. To do that, I'm going to turn snapping back on, and then I'm going to drag him up to where he's centered, right about there. And I can tell by looking at the edges again. Actually, if I look from -100 to +100, I can see that he's just a little bit low here. I need to move him up just another tick. And one more. Right about there. Yeah, right about there. So now that we've got him centered, I can save this file out of Inkscape, and we'll have our graphic ready to import into FreeCAD. Now, one thing I've noticed, and you want to watch out for, if you look at the eyes, you see this void here that's completely surrounded? We'll have to watch out for voids like that when we get into FreeCAD. This might be a solid, and we'll have to cut it out of our graphic, maybe. We'll find out when we get there. Okay, so I'm going to go File, and I'm going to select Save As. And I'm going to call him tiger1.svg. Yep, I've already done this, obviously. Okay, we've got our graphic processed. Let's go over to FreeCAD and set up our puzzle. Okay, we're back in FreeCAD. I'm going to import our tiger. So I'll go up to File, import, Tiger 1, open. We want SVG as geometry. We don't want a picture, we want the actual geometry, so I'll select that. Takes it a moment to process, depending upon how complex your graphic is. Now I'm going to hide my base so I can just see the tiger that we're working on. So I'll click on it over here in the tree, base, extrude. You can see the little eye is there. If I hit the space bar, that hides it. And now we can see our tiger. And yep, look at those eyes. See that? So before we can extrude this, we're going to have to find the paths that are those fillers in the eyes. They're probably going to be a high number or a low number. I don't think I can click on them. Maybe. Oh yeah, there it is. That's 20. Path 20, okay. With no 0. Path 20, okay. This one? Path 19. So path 19 and path 20 are the solid, or the openings in the eyes. I'm going to compound those separately. So I'm going to select both of those. Hold down Control, pick the other one. So now I've got just those two chunks selected. I'm going to come up here to the Make Compound tool. Now those two have been combined into a compound. Then I can take the rest of the tiger and combine him into a separate compound. Okay, so now I've just got the tiger, and I'll make him a separate compound. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to extrude both of these into 3D space. If we look at it now, it's just an infinitely small or flat outline. We need it to be three-dimensional. So I'm going to start with the tiger itself, and I'm going to extrude him. Now, our base was 3 millimeters, right? So we want him to be a little bit taller than that. So I'm going to extrude him 5 millimeters. So I'll pick the compound of the tiger, come up here to the extrude tool, and often with imported geometry, it doesn't know what direction is normal to it, so we need to pick a custom direction. We want to extrude it on the Z axis so it gets taller. So I'll pick custom direction. Z already has a 1 in it. That means that we're going to extrude on the Z axis. And I'll set my length here to 5 millimeters. And there is our extruded tiger. Now you'll notice those eyes again. Well, we need to extrude those cutouts, which is this compound here. So I'll select it, and we'll extrude it the same distance. Pick extrude, custom direction, 5 millimeters. There, now you can see them there. Now we're just going to cut those out of our tiger. And we'll do that with a Boolean cut. So I'll pick the tiger, you click the one you want to keep, and then I'll hold down Control and I'll click the second extrude, the eyes, the openings in the eyes. So they're both selected. And then we'll come over here to the Boolean cut. There we go. Now we have our tiger with his eyes like they should be. And if I bring back the base, I'll click on it in the tree and reveal it with the space bar. Now you can see we have the basics of our puzzle here. I'm going to add some text to it as well before we do the jigsaw operation. Just go to a top view. I'm going to put the word tiger here. Let's say we were making this puzzle for our toddler or young child. I'm going to put the word tiger there. To do that, I'm going to use the shape string in the draft workbench. So I'll come up here and I'll pick the draft workbench. And we have the yellow tools is what you're going to want to look for, not this one, not the text. We want the shape string. So look for the yellow S, shapes from text. You can also find that under the drafting menu, shape from text. That brings up the shape string dialog over here. We can click where we want it. Now if I click on this surface, it's going to raise it up too, so it'll be 3 millimeters off Z on that surface, which is what we want. So I'm going to click right there. You can see that put coordinates in. The string is our text, so I'll make that tiger. Height is the height of the letters. Not the extrusion, but the physical, or the vertical height of the letters. We'll leave it at 10. Font file will probably be blank unless you've already set this in preferences, and you'll have to pick a font. So you click this little 3-button browse window, and you can go and browse to your fonts. Now I'm on Linux, so in Linux the fonts are in /usr/share/fonts. And there's a TrueType directory, and I've picked Deja Vu Bold. In Windows, I think it's in System32/fonts. In Mac, it's probably in your System folder. There's a fonts folder, I believe, and you'll find your TrueType fonts in there. So choose your font and hit open. Now that we've got our font, we've got our string, I'll hit OK. Oh, it reset my point. We'll have to move it. That's okay. I can move it right here. Shape string is highlighted. I can go down here under placement, position, and I can move. You can see Z is already at 3. It did move it up to the surface of our base. I'll just have to move it with these numbers here with the Y and X to put it where I want it. And I'm just using the mouse wheel to change these. And I think I want him to be the text to be a little bit bigger. So I'm going to come down here in the data and find height or size. We'll try 15. I think that looks good. Okay, we'll go with that. So now that we've got our shape string there, we have to extrude it again. See, it's just a little outline. So I'll click on the shape string. We'll go back to the part workbench. Oh, you know what? I think the grid is on. Yeah, let me turn off the grid. Okay, back to the part workbench. Now with our shape string selected, I will extrude it. Now it's already on the surface, so we only need to go another 2 millimeters. So I'll make that 2, and it should be the same length as the rest of the tiger. Hit OK. Yeah. See that? Okay. Now we've got the basics of our puzzle. We need to do the jigsaw. And to do that, we're going to use a free jigsaw generator on the web. So open your browser, and let's go there to get our jigsaw. This is a free jigsaw generator. Here's the address. I will put it in the video description down below, so you can go and click on it, bookmark it, because you might want to use it in the future. It's pretty straightforward. We set our size, and I'm going to make it a little bit bigger than my puzzle because I don't need this outline. We just need the cutouts. So I'm going to make this 205 by 205. And then tiles is how dense you want it to be. I'm going to just make this one simple since we're making it for a kid, 4 by 4. That gives us 16 puzzle pieces. Jitter is how complicated. See how it's sort of offset everything? It's not quite as squared off. Tab size is how big the tabs are. You can make them bigger. Seed is just a random number generator. It just randomizes the actual cutouts. But I think that looks pretty good. Maybe let's make those tabs just a little bit bigger. Make it easier for small fingers, right? So now that we've got our jigsaw, we're going to download the SVG for our jigsaw. And that will go into your downloads, named Jigsaw SVG. And that's it. We're ready to work on the jigsaw. We're going to go back to Inkscape so we can remove this border, and we're going to make these lines a certain thickness for our cutout. So let's go back to Inkscape and load in this jigsaw file that we just downloaded. Okay, I'm back in Inkscape. I'm going to open our jigsaw that we downloaded. And there it is. Again, we have this outline. This is the big square. You can see when I'm clicking these. Okay, that is the 3 vertical lines. That is the 3 horizontal cutout lines. This one highlights the whole outside. That's the outline. We don't need that. So I'm going to delete that. Now, we're going to give these a thickness, and we're going to do that with the strokes menu. So I'm going to come up here to Object, Fill and Stroke. That brings up our Fill and Stroke tab over here. And then I'm going to select, well, we'll zoom out a little bit, and we'll draw a box so we're selecting both the vertical and horizontal lines. And our stroke style is our stroke width. This is how wide those lines are. If I change that to 1, now they're 1 millimeter, which is too big. Most printers will be able to print in place if this is at least 0.2 millimeters. If you go much smaller than that, you run the risk of the edges fusing with each other. You might need to go bigger. It depends on your printer. So I'm going to set this to 0.2 because I know that my printer can handle that just fine. And now these lines are 0.2 millimeters. Before we can import them into the CAD program, we need to do one more thing. This is important. We need to convert this stroke to a path. Right now, it's just a infinitesimally narrow, and FreeCAD wouldn't see it as having any width. But if we convert this stroke to path, now these will be 2 separate lines that are 0.2 millimeters apart. So it'll have a little thickness. And again, I need to center it. So I've got the whole thing selected. I'm going to make sure my snapping is on. It's just over 200 millimeters in both directions, you can see. So we're going to drag this up. Right there. See the blue lines up here just outside of the 100 on each side? It's perfectly centered. Okay, now we will save this. Save as. And I'm going to call it Jigsaw Processed to keep it differentiated from the one we downloaded. All right, we're done in Inkscape. The rest we can do in FreeCAD. Okay, we're back in FreeCAD. I'm going to do something here before I start with the puzzle, or with the cuts. We need to combine these elements we have. We have our base, we have the tiger, and we have the words. So I'm going to come up here, base extrude, and the cut, which is our tiger, and the extrude, and I'm going to come up here to the Boolean and select union. If this doesn't work, which sometimes it won't because of the complexity of the geometry, you can compound them and just use it as a compound. Okay, now we've got our uncut puzzle all combined together as this fusion. I will rename this Puzzle Fusion. If I wanted to make any further changes, I could still edit this. For example, I've just noticed my tiger is not centered. He's wide over there and he's right up against the edge there. I might want to move him over just a little bit. So I can come over here to the tree where our puzzle fusion is, hit this little triangle, and let's see. Cut was where our tiger was. Yes. So with the cut highlighted, I can go to Placement, Position, And I want to move him just a little bit to the left on the X. Maybe minus 2 millimeters. Let's see how that looks. Now, unfortunately, I have to wait for it to recompute. It's got to go through and redo all those operations, but in a moment, we'll see the tiger update. There we go. He shifted, and he's just right. Now, look at that. See, not that far from each edge. So you can always re-edit things. It's the beauty of a parametric program. Okay, we've got our puzzle fusion. We need to bring in our jigsaw cut. So I'm going to go to File, Import, and we called it Jigsaw Processed. So there it is. I'll select that and hit Open. Again, I want to use SVG as geometry. And it's there. We can't see it because it's hiding under our fusion. Let's hide our fusion. I'll click it in the model tree and hit the space bar. And there it is. 1, 2, 3 horizontal paths and 1, 2, 3 vertical paths. Now, as I said, remember when I said the stroke? Look here. By converting stroke to path, we created 2 paths that make an outline of the stroke. That this is 0.2 millimeters thick. That's why we did that in Inkscape instead of just bringing this into FreeCAD. This will let us print it in place and let the pieces fit together. What we need to do, though, we can't just cut these all out of our puzzle at once. These places where the geometry intersects here will confuse the CAD engine. We have to do the vertical lines and the horizontal lines separately. So I'm going to compound them together again. I'm going to select just the 3 horizontal paths, make a compound, and then I'm going to select just the 3 vertical paths and make a compound. Okay, to cut things out, we're going to need to extrude these to where they come up all the way through our model. So I'm going to extrude each of these individually. Actually, I think I can do them both together. Since we're using the same value, I'll hit the extrude. Again, custom direction Z, so it knows which way to go. And we'll do it, 8 millimeters. It just has to be taller than our model. There we go. Now we've got these walls. If I bring the puzzle back, make it visible, you can see that they come all the way up through our puzzle. And we are ready to slice our puzzle up. We're going to do it one at a time. We're just going to do the horizontal ones first. So I'm going to select the puzzle, hold down Control and select the extrude. I'm not going to do a Boolean cut because that sometimes fails when the geometry gets really complex. What I am going to do is slice apart, which is under this Boolean fragments icon, or you can go to the Part menu, Split, Slice Apart. It'll take it a little while to process. Over here on the tree now, you see this exploded slice. If I expand that, these are all the slices that it got cut into. But we need to delete these. This is our puzzle pieces. This is the part that we use to slice with. That's still there. So we're going to delete that out of the tree. With it highlighted, I'll hit the delete key. There's our next puzzle piece. That's the cut tool, so we'll delete that. There's our next puzzle piece, and that's the cut tool, so we'll delete that. That leaves us with our 4 puzzle slices. Now we're going to cut those with the vertical lines. So we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to select this exploded slice, hold down the Control key and select our cutting tool, and we're going to do slice apart again. And again, it will take a little while to process. And it's done. Well, almost. We're going to have to clean up a few things in here again, too. That's a puzzle piece. That's a fragment of the slice line you can see there. So I'll delete that. Puzzle piece, slice line, delete that. Puzzle piece, slice line, delete that. If you accidentally delete a piece you didn't want to, oops, you can hit Control Z or Command Z if you're on a Mac to undo that operation. So I'm just looking for these slice pieces, the cutting tool pieces, and deleting those. That's it. And there we go. We now have our puzzle all ready to be exported for 3D printing. And it's got these nice little cuts in it that are 0.2 millimeters. Now, to do this in multicolor, we're going to do a color change in the slicer. And all printers can do simple color changes layer to layer. Well, most all modern printers can for sure. And I'm going to show you how to do that. So let's export our puzzle. I just click on this exploded slice now and go to File, Export, Tiger Puzzle. I'm exporting it as an STL mesh for 3D printing. And we are done. Let's go over to the slicer and I'll show you how to set up the multicolor print. Okay, I'm in Prusa Slicer. Most slicers should work in a similar fashion. I'm just going to give you the concepts. So I'm going to import our model, tigerpuzzle.stl. There he is. And again, you can see we got these nice little gaps in here. Okay, we're going to set up our normal print settings and hit slice. So it will create an initial slicing of the file, and then we're going to go through the layers and we're going to choose where we want to do a color change. Okay, slicing is finished. I'm going to zoom in a little here. Now you'll remember that the base of our puzzle was 3 millimeters. So I look at the slider here and the top shows the top layer is 5 millimeters, 25 layers. I'm going to bring this down. So there is 3 millimeters. If I look at the next layer, 3.2, you can see it's starting to do the letters and the tiger. So that's where we want to do the color change, right there at 3.2 millimeters. I'll click plus to add a color change. And that inserts a command into the G-code that will cause the printer to pause, unload the filament, allow us to load the new filament, and then resume the print. Now I have to hit slice now again to update the G-code with that color change. And it's done. We are ready to send the file to the printer for printing. Our print-in-place puzzle. Okay, well, it's printing away, and it's almost to the color change. So I thought I would go ahead and film what happens. I've got my next roll of filament up here ready to go. It's just finishing the last puzzle piece on this layer, and then it's going to pause and ask us to load new filament. Here we go. You can see it moves the carriage off to the side. It's just unloading the current filament. There it goes. It's asking me if the filament unload was successful. I'll say yes. Now it wants me to load the next filament. There it goes, it's taking it in. Now what it's going to do is it's going to do a purge where it's going to pump that filament through until, well, to make sure that we get the new color. There it just changed to the silver. Now unfortunately I can't get my camera low enough to where you can see the nozzle. I'm going to pluck off the filament that it purged. Now, as soon as I tell it that yes, the filament is ready, it's going to prime the nozzle and spit out another little bit of filament, and then it's going to move over and start printing. So I'm going to get the tweezers ready to grab that little extra bit of filament that it spits out just before it starts moving, and then I'm going to hit OK. There, caught it. See? That was what it spit out. And now it will just continue on printing with the new filament, the new color, and we'll get our silver for the tiger. And here is the result. Our 3D printed puzzle, all ready for our nieces, nephews, grandkids, or sons and daughters to play with. I hope you found that fun and interesting, and I hope you make lots of really cool puzzles for your friends and kids. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Also, if you're not already a subscriber, click to subscribe. Join us on the Facebook channel for discussion about the videos. And if you'd like to help support this channel, please click to support me on my Patreon page.